Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friends. How are you today?
We are well, and how are you?
Very well, thank you.
We greet you in the light and love of the Infinite One Creator. Do you come in the same fashion?
I do, and thank you for asking.
Thank you for verifying. These are tumultuous times within your country.
They are, yes.
Very much so. We see an escalation in unpleasant events within the populace that is generated by the populace. This, unbeknownst to these individuals that perpetuate these difficult situations, is in an effort to polarize the population between service to self and service to others. The people that perpetuate these events that your people call terrible, not pleasant, are actually providing a service. They offered to participate in these events to push the populace to decide one way or the other. And so that is why many of these events are occurring, not just within your country, but as we spoke of last time when your recording instrument malfunctioned, didn't work.
Operator error.
That this is occurring globally within your planet.
Yes.
We spoke about Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
We don't foresee much stability in that region. As we spoke, we will reiterate what we spoke of prior to. Now
Please
that
do.
you can record.
Right.
The oil supply that's coming from the cold countries is going to be dramatically diminished because of their leaders that are not the most pleasant individuals by your standards.
Well, they're self-oriented.
They are service to self.
Yes.
Very much so. So Venezuela is not much better insofar as their government goes, but your world is still dependent upon the oil, the black stuff to function your automobiles.
Right.
And your factories, and to provide warmth when it's cold.
Right. Yes.
So the potential, we don't know for certain. We don't predict the future. But a strong potentiality is for the Venezuela people to step up and become very productive of this oil and gain more power within your global populace.
Right.
So we see that as a potentiality. The other situation that is occurring to help polarize people, service to self or service to other, is within the United States political system, the red and the blue.
Yes.
Those different parties, as they call them.
That's correct.
It's creating more and more of a split.
Yes.
Within the populace and also within families. And within families, that clashing forces them to address their difficulties with one another. So that serves as a stimulus for them to address their psychological problems, difficulties, anxieties, fear, stress within their own family unit to facilitate some resolution in that or a further divide. So there are many divisions that are occurring within your populace. China, for example, India, they're having some conflict within their own societies. And all of these events are just going to perpetuate it. Most importantly, Gaia is a huge player in all of this. Gaia is providing tremendous stimulus for people to come together, reconcile, and or go their separate ways, i.e. Floods, fires, natural disasters, tornadoes, things of that nature, where your electricity that powers the box with the pictures,
the
television, and the radio that plays the music,
right?
All of these distractions are going to be diminished in an effort to propel people to gain more awareness. internal awareness and awareness of others. And with all these distractions, this constant barrage of noise, it does not facilitate that. It just kind of kicks that can down the road.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so it doesn't get any resolution. Mm-hmm. So the diminishment of these devices, the talkie phone with the buttons,
Yes.
things of that, all of those types of devices are going to become restricted, and Gaia is going to facilitate that in order to provide a service to the populace to help them evolve and to become more aware. And the awareness has to come from inside the individual, mm-hmm. whereas many of your people on the planet
Yes.
look for validation, kindness, things of that nature from the outside, whereas the awareness has to come from the inside.
Right.
And so Gaia is providing that stimulus for the populace.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. If I may ask a few questions. Mm-hmm. We have been advised by numerous higher consciousness selves over in recent years of the imminence of efforts to require the populace to fulfill their mission in choosing whether they're going to polarize service to others or service to self. And one of the difficulties that the populace in general has been an inability to generate from within the population models or examples for lower consciousness segments of the population to mimic and to use as models in order to pattern their own development, their own progression. So the things that you're describing have long been planned, have they not?
Yes.
And what we're experiencing now is the results of that planning with the intended purpose of providing catalysts for people to first awaken and then begin to do the prescribed work that's necessary for all third density beings. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. A lot of the work that I have been doing lately has been defining the nature, the purpose and the nature of the identity, which is synonymous with the ego, and providing a source of stress and or suffering, which has been the topic of many of our more spiritual teachers in recent years. Do you, from your posture, see that as the primary objective of these changes, to allow people to become first, to awaken of their unhappiness, of their dissatisfaction, and begin to make a commitment to fulfill their mission or their purpose in life?
Yes, which is why the focus needs to be turned inward mm-hmm. for awareness, and all of these extraneous devices and things make people diverted from a single task. Mm-hmm. The primary task is to develop awareness and awareness of the self and to interact with other people. And so that bouncing back of interactions with people, mm-hmm. that's how you gain more awareness and insight and teaching one another. So the more that these devices become inoperable, the more opportunity individuals will have to gain that awareness. It will accelerate it. Mm-hmm. And so many people are going to be disrupted globally. There's going to be more tsunamis, more flooding, more loss of the power square grid. Mm-hmm. More of that is going to dissipate or become inoperable.
Just fail.
Yes, fail. So there's going to be much more of that, which will be uncomfortable for your people, but necessary from a raising the consciousness standpoint.
Okay.
It sounds very contradictory, But these types of things are necessary in order to propel the populace to become more aware, because that is one of the primary purposes of incarnating in the first place, is to develop awareness and consciousness. But with all of the blankets of distractions that your people have created, it's put a hindrance on that.
Okay. It's my observation, and I ask your perspective. The majority of the population, of the Earth's population, is still in a condition of what I would describe as chaotic, that they are not decided, they have not chosen a path of service to self or service to others.
That is correct, which is why Gaia is providing such a tremendous service by creating all of these upheavals that seem very destructive, and they are, but it provides a tremendous rapid stimulus for the people that experience those weather difficulties to come together, to really come together as a unit, as a group, as a helping of one another, to learn more about compassion and kindness, and then internal self-awareness when you don't have all of these distractions. And the majority of the populace that experiences these things globally are frustrated, understandably so. But from a greater perspective, it's Gaia providing this stimulus for people to advance their development and consciousness level at a rapid pace, that if things were status quo, they would not have that opportunity, or they would not have sought it out, because they're kind of in a fog. They just kind of go day to day to day to day to day to day to day without seeing beyond the fog. So when you're pushed to do something dramatically different, that's when the most rapid growth and awareness occurs.
And we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes.
And so we're talking about providing incentives for changing of existing beliefs and methods of operation.
Yes.
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 Okay.
And your big corporations, the big the companies with the big signs,
right,
that pump the oil out, that's going to start to diminish, because the from our perspective, and like we have said, we do not predict the future, but the dependence on the black oil has to go away, because it's very pollutant to Gaia, and that the plastics that you have your drinks in,
yes,
and other products that you put food in with the plastics.
the plastics, yeah,
Yes, the from our perspective, and from Gaia's perspective, she's becoming very sick because of all of those types of products that are being mass produced and dumped into your oceans,
right,
and killing off a lot of the fish and sharks and whales and the coral reefs, which are vital. A lot of those are dying off, as you know.
right.
This
yes.
isn't news. But those plastic products need to cease. Another form of a container needs to be developed. We can't tell you what that might be. That's for your scientist people to decide. But there needs to be an alternative, and it needs to happen soon, because your planet is very sick.
Yes.
And as a result of that, the populace is going to become very sick as well. Like the landfills in India, many of the children are going to die young because of the amount of disease that are in those landfills, and they play in it. They play in it, and that's where they get their toys, if you will.
Yes.
Things that they play with. And it's very, very harmful. So there has to be a solution that your people need to come up with to reverse all of that.
Right. We've talked in the past about a little bit about the history of the Earth population. My understanding is that the Earth, beginning of the Earth third density experience that just ended a few years ago, began with 16 different sources of contributions to the population from different planets that had failed a third density experience.
Yes.
Okay. I'm unfamiliar with any of the experiences of the 15 populations other than that has evolved from within this solar system. But that portion of the population, which is a large portion of the population, has had a very difficult history and previous third density experiences within this. So it's a behavior that has continued for thousands of years in multiple different efforts.
Yes, yes. The learning within your populace has been very slow.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a repetitive process until the learning has occurred. And so it will continue until the populace becomes more aware.
Mm-hmm.
And until that happens, it's going to perpetuate over and over and over. It's like a loop.
Right.
It's like a loop that continues and continues and continues until enough consciousness evolves to extract themselves from that loop and create something more beneficial.
Right. So is the previous experiences brought forward by the, and I call it the Zenoa Earth populace, portion of the populace, is that predisposed in their pattern of consciousness? Is this something that would be helpful to bring into their awareness to better deal with it?
It's predisposed in every level of consciousness. It's just dependent upon how many within the populace have enough awareness to rise above it.
Mm-hmm. What would be your recommendation as to how we could jumpstart that awareness within the population?
You can provide the information, which you are working on.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's incumbent upon each individual within your populace to seek out that information and to have enough awareness to want it in order to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So you can put it out, provide it in different formats, but it's incumbent upon each individual within the populace to seek it out on their own. It has to be their own volition.
We have a saying that people stay the same until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, and then they change. And so my understanding of what you're expressing or sharing with us is our experience of living is going to become more disrupted and more painful until we begin to awaken and institute change.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's the awareness, but it's also, it's not just becoming uncomfortable or experiencing uncomfortable circumstances. It's learning how to adapt and accept those circumstances, which will raise the consciousness and awareness and compassion for one another. So those uncomfortable situations are kind of like we'll picture what she pictures, a cattle prod, poking a cattle to do something.
Yes.
And so the cattle doesn't like it.
Right.
But if you poke it enough, it will move.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's what she just showed us.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a very juvenile analogy, but we think
well, it's juvenile that it has to work that way. And we have another phrase that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Correct.
Yeah. And so the opportunity is being provided for we, the horse, to go to the water, but it's incumbent upon us to actually drink the water.
Right. You can look at it all day long.
Yeah.
But until you imbibe the water, you will not get the thirst relief that you are seeking.
Mm-hmm. Ultimately, our task in this level of consciousness, the third density level of consciousness, which we currently share, is to become awareness. Is
Yes,
that correct?
That's correct.
And once we become awareness, then we will continue our evolutionary growth by exploring love through the lens of awareness.
Yes.
Okay. So it is actually love that we are all seeking. We're attempting to prepare to explore. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Love and wisdom are the goals.
Okay. But sequentially, love comes first, right?
Yes.
And in order to experience those, it's necessary that we employ the tool of awareness to heal the distortions that we have currently and to allow ourselves to invert that awareness, as you describe it, and discover that we already are the love that we seek. Correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so the process is for us to get rid of stuff that we've piled on top of the love that we already are in order to discover what we're seeking all along.
Yes. Yes, people pile, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
pile things on that are unnecessary. Unnecessary responsibilities, unnecessary feelings of obligation, unnecessary feelings of having to please somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
When ultimately, when you have that inside awareness, you realize the only person you need to please, if you will, or love is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can love another person, but ultimately you want to love yourself and have enough awareness to recognize that. So regardless of what somebody says or does or doesn't do, it doesn't impact you.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you, as you just stated, you are the love that you seek. It is inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get it externally. And you are part of the universe and the creator.
Mm-hmm.
And that is all the love that you need.
Mm-hmm. One of the difficulties that people have in understanding that and understanding love is there is a predisposition to consider or to imagine that love is a verb, that it's something that we give and take amongst ourselves. And in that comes the thought of loving oneself, when in actuality, when we say loving the self, then that implies that either our authentic self has to love our distorted self, or our distorted self has to love some false image of ourself. Wouldn't it be more accurate to disclose that we really don't love ourselves? We are the love that we seek, and therefore it is a condition of being rather than a verb that we somehow have to contort in order to maintain the erroneous self-perception of our identity or our ego.
Yes, in order to love yourself, as you say,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to love yourself like with a big heart
Mm-hmm.
or a card.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be present and aware, you will be filled with the love from the Creator, which you incarnated with.
Mm-hmm. Which you are.
Right.
Yeah. So it is not a matter of loving the self, it's just getting the false perception of the self out of the way and allowing yourself to be your authentic self.
Yes, it's moving that we picture boxes, clutter,
Mm-hmm.
stuff, things, and that gets accumulated
Right.
throughout life. But getting that out of the way to allow the love that you are and that comes from the Creator into yourself, which is how it should be, which is how it's designed.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many things that get accumulated over time that block that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What causes us most pain is the erroneous perceptions of self in the earth experience. We are confused about who we are, and consequently are susceptible to accepting a multitude of erroneous beliefs into our identity, into our perception of self.
Yes. Too much, how shall we say this? Too much faith and belief is put into external individuals without questioning,
Without discernment.
without questioning. And when you lack that awareness of yourself, it's easy to be deceived into those types of thoughts and beliefs. And once those are incorporated, it becomes very difficult to flip it over,
Right.
to change it.
Right.
And once you incorporate those beliefs and ideas and thoughts, no matter how correct or erroneous they are, without that internal awareness, the discernment is faulty.
Okay. Comparing the earth experience to other third density experiences that you have familiarity with, is the earth experience deemed to be more difficult, an average third density experience, or less difficult?
It depends upon the individual, their level of awareness and their level of consciousness,
Right.
and the environment that they incarnate into. So it's not a one or the other.
Okay.
It's incumbent upon a variety of factors that each individual decides upon prior to incarnating, insofar as how quickly they want to evolve themselves. And that will determine the difficulty of their incarnated circumstances.
Okay. Well, you're speaking of an individual incarnation within the experience.
Yes.
And I was trying to generalize more to the experience itself and the opportunities for learning that the experience itself provides, and comparing the earth experience in total to other third density experiences. Would you consider it to be a difficult experience in comparison, an average, or a less than difficult experience?
A difficult experience.
Okay. Okay. And we choose to incarnate because it's difficult. Because from our metaphysical perspective, before we incarnate, it holds great opportunity for us to increase the velocity of our evolution.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So once we get here and we forget that, it becomes intensely difficult because we don't have that perspective of our goal or our mission for incarnating in the first place.
That is correct. It's like searching for a certain color of a pebble on a beach. So you're sort of wandering around trying to figure it out or find it, and it becomes very frustrating, which causes a delay in how far you can accelerate.
Okay. Well, if I may, we're I think running short of time because our vocal channel becomes fatigued when we do this, and I would like, if we could, just to spend a few minutes reiterating a little information about you, our guide in this endeavor. You are Arcturians.
Yes, we are.
Good. And Arcturia is a 9-star system.
This is correct.
Similar to the 9-star system that we participate in.
Yes.
And you are we share the same galaxy, and obviously share the same universe. So that constitutes how we get the 9-star similarities.
Yes.
But you have been in the process for much longer than our 9-star system.
Yes, we have.
Okay. And your involvement with the Earth experience has been a long time, short time?
Very long time. However, we have had to be very, what's your term, hands off, gloves off, and more of an observational role.
Okay.
We cannot intrude upon the populace as service to self tends to do.
Right.
We do not abide by that, so we have to be invited in.
You respect the law of confusion or
Absolutely.
the law of free will.
Yes. So we have to be invited in. We can't just show up and scare the populace. That is not our intention.
Mm-hmm.
So we are more of an observational role.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody, one of your individuals, has the capacity to contact us and is willing to speak with us, then we are allowed to come in and assist, but only at that time. Otherwise, we just observe.
Okay. And when you speak to us as the voice of Arcturia, which is inclusive of all 9 of the archetypes and all densities within the archetype. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And we had, unfortunately, we had addressed this in the session that did not properly record, but many of the listeners will be familiar with the raw material, as it's called, that LNL Research, Carla, Jim, and Don were able to channel and to put into books. And Carla had a very difficult time. It was a very sensitive connection that they had with raw. And your connection with our vocal channel is very open, very casual, very easy to talk to and to communicate with. And what would you attribute the distinctions between the difficulties that Raw and Carla had and what you were experiencing?
Carla had multiple physical difficulties. And so as a result of her chronic pain, that tended to detract from her ability to channel. Because if you are distracted by physical pain, it disrupts the communication. Or it's almost like stepping on a garden hose and you cut off the flow because of the pain.
Right.
And so that was the big disruptor because of her chronic pain and the medications that she was given to alleviate her pain also diminished her ability to communicate clearly, effectively, and concisely.
Okay,
we're going to let her go now.
All right. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you.